This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thanks for letting me do this for so long. Oh man, could you imagine trying to write a whole video game? It's a story with playable components which may give two people a completely different experience told at whatever speed they play the game at. So writing a narrative that keeps everyone engaged and invested has to be so incredibly challenging. That being said, I can acknowledge the difficulty at roughly the same time I can recognize an awful plot twist, since those exist outside of video games, and if a new story revelation has you scratching your head at best, or launching stuff through Windows at worst, then yeah, it's not great stuff. For so many games, storytelling is an afterthought where stupid ideas are passed around so casually, and when the time comes for a big plot twist, the story breaks instead of twists. And that just sounds really messy. Framing devices are always a little scary. If you don't know, a framing device is effectively a story within a story where the main plot is being retold or re-experienced through some other separate interaction. My worry with this from a video game standpoint is the disconnect between all the gameplay that happens in the main story and the framing device that you're told is important. Assassin's Creed suffers a lot from this. Running and jumping through historical cities is fun. Modern day humans are not. This extends to the infamous plot twist of "it was all a dream," because it's effectively a framing device introduced right at the end of the story with zero foreshadowing that completely invalidates everything that you've seen from the plot. So in short, not a good idea. Star Ocean goes one further and makes a big enough mistake to not just negatively impact one game, but in fact it retcons most of the franchise instead. So what the hell happened here? Well, the third game in the franchise, Till the End of Time, talks a lot about 4D space as this higher plane of existence that godlike beings inhabit, which is already a little worrying when you're talking about any kind of deities that don't have time for the petty squabbles of mortals. But Star Ocean 3 goes even further than that. There comes a point where your party enters this 4D space and it quickly becomes painfully apparent that the world that you just came from is little more than a computer simulation. It's not quite as bad as finding out that everything was a dream, but it's still the figment of someone's imagination, and Star Ocean 3 is committed enough to say that this applies to everything that's come before this game. So it's actually worse than simply saying that Star Ocean 3 is full of characters and experiences that aren't real. This is enough of a plot twist that most of the franchise up until this point isn't real either. I mean, damn! Not too sure what possessed the writers to torpedo their franchise like that, but I almost admire the commitment. Like, surely this had to take actual effort from the writers' room to undercut their lore so much. It's a hell of a move, I gotta say. Hey guys, real quick, my channel has been approved for YouTube memberships now, so if you fancy supporting my channel more directly, you can become a member for as little as £1 a month and gain access to some nifty perks, as well as being featured on my channel page. Hit the join button below this video if that sounds cool to you. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. Hey, do you know what game seemed really interesting but turned out not to be? 12 Minutes had this fascinating premise that was nicely explored in its trailers that plays with time loops and an enigma that needs to be unraveled, like a murder mystery version of Groundhog Day. Sadly, 12 Minutes never gets more palatable than its trailers, and the more you find out, the more you get the gnawing sense that this game was written in a way that ignores a lot of the subtext that it lays out for you, and explores its own twisted fantasy a little too closely. Let me explain. So, 12 Minutes actually has 4 major plot twists that all kind of crash into each other. Firstly, your wife killed her father, which isn't much of a twist since it's effectively the inciting incident behind the whole game. However, you eventually find out it was you who killed your wife's father and you suppressed the memories all this time. Okay, that's fine, bit of a contrivance, but we can work with it. Everything unravels completely by the third twist though, since it's revealed that it was actually your wife's half-brother who killed her dad, and wouldn't you know it, that's still you. Oh, so it's that kind of game, is it? But wait, there's one last heaping of bullshit to dollop onto this adventure in psychosexual incest, because all of this is happening inside of your mind, and the only part of this which is real is the incest. Everything else has been some kind of fantasy that manifests because your playable character has fallen in love with their half-sister and is using time loops to cope with how he's imagining his life with her. It's all sorts of fucked up for obvious reasons, but even away from the moral issues, it's a terrible twist that gives you no prior warnings before the game hits you with, by the way, she's your sister. Adding the fantasy aspect on top just serves to give you the choice of 4 deeply unsatisfying endings, but honestly by that point, the damage has well and truly been done. Throw in far too much domestic abuse for a normal video game, let alone one that is primarily acting as the protagonist's fantasy, and 12 minutes is a game that hoists its flag to an awful plot twist and doubles down all the way to the fires of hell. You're telling me you hired James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley to read these lines? You should have spent the money on a script editor. Sometimes a plot twist can be a nifty idea that is executed badly or for the wrong end result. As someone who loves Metal Gear Solid 2, the idea of shifting perspective away from the expected main character of the story isn't such a crazy idea, and can be the sort of curveball that galvanizes the rest of the narrative. However, it absolutely has to have a purpose and be building towards whatever central theme the game is based around. There isn't a plot twist in this video as divisive as the revelation that The Last of Us Part 2 is angling itself towards a particular type of story that it has to tell very carefully. Not to out myself as the willing recipient of Apollo's gift of prophecy, but I saw Joel's death in this game coming from a mile away. That first trailer has Joel appearing from blinding light like a ghost, and when Ellie talks about killing people for revenge, it's just a bit too clear what has happened. Still though, I'm in the camp that says that Joel dying is a good idea. Confused? Are we still in the same video about bad plot twists? Yeah, okay, that might sound weird, but in isolation, the best way to incite conflict and interesting character growth in this story is for someone to die. Especially since it underlines the danger of a post-apocalyptic society and how you can never get too comfortable. Joel finished his growing in the first game, so naturally this is Ellie's time to shine, and what better way to evolve her character than to kill off her father figure? However, my issues arrive pretty quickly with how the rest of the game unfolds, because The Last of Us Part 2 gives you several hours where you play as Abby, who put all those holes in Joel's face and is the target of Ellie's revenge. The idea was to show both sides of the situation and how Abby is a real person who isn't inherently evil or anything, and doesn't deserve to be revenge killed by Ellie since she's got friends who are cool, and technically, Joel killed Abby's dad, so he had it coming, so yeah. Seeing Abby's side of the story actively ruins the narrative, since it gives the player way too much information about her backstory and humanizes her in a way that Ellie doesn't benefit from. It attempts to drive a wedge between the player and Ellie and have the player come to the conclusion that revenge is bad earlier than the main character in the game, but it runs a train through Ellie's character growth. There isn't organic evolution for Ellie, she just doesn't kill Abby at the end of the game, because if she did, it would come across as mean-spirited given all we, the player, know about her. Arguably, the biggest twist narratively would have been for Ellie to kill Abby, despite all the backstory the player was hand-fed, especially in a cutscene without player involvement, since at least it would make sense why the game was trying so hard to separate player from playable character. In the end, if this is where the writers were going with this, they might as well have kept Joel alive. Probably wouldn't have divided half as many fans. If there was ever a game that somehow managed to drop every single one of the interesting narrative balls that it had in the air, that game would be Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. It's actually infuriating how many intriguing threads are introduced by about a third of the way through the game, but through one reason or another, and possibly arguments behind the scenes that left a chunk off the ending, none of this pays off in any satisfying way. Characters die underwhelming deaths, seemingly important moments are either forgotten about or fizzle away in a matter of moments, and the single biggest reveal that the Phantom Pain has to offer is somehow both too obvious and so stupid to the point where it undercuts everything that you've seen and done in this game. As the bridge between Snake being an all-American hero and Big Boss being an overarching villain for the rest of the saga, this really doesn't fill in as many blanks as you might have hoped. The big twist is that ever since the helicopter crash that put you in a coma for 9 years, Big Boss was swapped out for the nameless medic who was hurt in the same explosion, and the medic was transformed via plastic surgery and hypnotherapy to become a fake Big Boss, while the real one goes off and learns how to ride a motorbike, I don't know. There are obvious hints, basically all of them coming in the prologue where you choose a new face for some reason and then never use it, and your bandaged guardian angel has the same voice as Snake does, but once you get into the main meat of the game and you're playing as Snake and talking to people who recognize you as Snake, you never think twice about it. That is until right at the end, and it's a strange end because of the dispute between Kojima and Konami that left the Phantom Pain without its true ending. But you sort of randomly unlock this epilogue after playing some missions, and it half-heartedly tells you that, oh snap, you're not actually Big Boss. This is pointless because it removes any characterization that this game was giving to Big Boss, since all of it now belongs to a new character who dies in the next game anyway. That's the thing, this twist is attempting to explain why Big Boss comes back in later games, when he's supposed to have died in Outer Heaven during the events of the first ever Metal Gear game, but before the Phantom Pain, the line was that Big Boss faked his death. And that was okay, that was a satisfying explanation. You can have the actual Big Boss play an active part in the Phantom Pain and still be around to fake his death in Metal Gear 1 without this convoluted bullshit that invents a new character to take the fall instead. In a game that was supposed to show Big Boss's transition from hero to villain, he's barely in the game at all. You can't blame Konami for this one. Do you know what the biggest and best sign of a bad plot twist is? Well, it probably wouldn't come to mind because it so rarely happens, but when a developer makes a public statement admitting that they fucked up a plot twist, that'll probably do it. When Bethesda took the reins of the Fallout games, they decided to keep some semblance of the player choice, which was such an integral component of Fallouts 1 and 2, and even though Fallout 3 isn't quite as RPG-centric as the previous games, it does at least allow you to create a character who acts like you'd want and focuses on the skills that you prefer. This extends to certain story moments where you've got more than a couple of choices available to you and can pick the option that works best with the role that your character is playing. That is until the end of the game, where any and all promise that Fallout 3 was working with was dropped like an anvil with its main story. After an awesome sequence where Megatron blows away most of an army, you're left with a water purifier to activate to save the day and ride off into the sunset. Except the control room has been flooded with lethal radiation, and anyone who activates the purifier will be hit with tons of deadly radiation. Also, the purifier is about to explode, so you need to do something or people will die. There are 3 possible endings to Fallout 3. The 2 bad endings involve either doing nothing and letting the purifier explode, killing everyone around you, or you can send Sarah Lyons in to take all that juicy radiation and be branded a coward. The good ending is to go in alone and save the world with your radiation absorption skills, which may sound heroic, but given that this is the only good ending, and you can't free roam after any ending, means that the plot twist of Fallout 3 suddenly narrowing your choice to one stupid ending is really jarring. There are so many problems in this game that have multiple solutions, and you're telling me that the end of the game has one and it's a dumb solution? Yeah, that's a bad twist. It was so jarring, in fact, that Bethesda recognized their fuck up and released some DLC that not only lets you play after the ending, but allows you to send other followers into the control room, including followers like Forks, who are immune to radiation! Gee, I wonder what a real person would have done in this situation. Usually, this would be enough for me to discount it from this video because it's kind of a decent plot twist now, but you've got to pay for broken steel, which I think makes it the first terrible plot twist that can be fixed if you can afford it. If I wanted a dumb plot twist that is marginally justified by paying real money for some DLC, I'll play Asura's Wrath, thank you very much. And that's all I've got for now. Do you agree, or is there an even worse plot twist that I failed to mention? Let me know in a comment down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more in the future, and hit that bell for notifications of every new upload. If you need something else to watch right now, I ranked the Halo games last week, and I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including Brady Kellum, Ryan Down, and Fusion Warrior. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.